when you talk to people, if you just give people a little dignity, respect, and a chance for them just to speak on a normal basis, ask them how their day is going, but mean it.
You're listening to Find the Good News, episode 61, The Next Breath, featuring Ted Thibodeaux and Jody Barrilleaux of Halos. Find the Good News is produced by Parker Brand Creative Services, a branding agency that thinks sideways, pushes forward, and gets your brand up. See what else we do at parkerbrandup.com. Thanks for tuning in to Find the Good News. In this episode, I share my conversation with Ted Thibodeaux and Jody Barrilleaux of Halos, which stands for Healing After a Loved One's Suicide. If you listen to this podcast on the reg, then you already know that suicide has left an impact on the lives of many past guests. I'm not exempt from that either. If you find yourself in this category, then I encourage you to listen to this episode and share it with someone who may need it. Next week, I get to share my visit with Shelly Johnson. Shelly recently retired from her role as the Executive Director of the Southwest Louisiana Convention and Visitors Bureau, an entity that grew dramatically during her 30-plus years of service. I had the chance to work with Shelly and her team in various capacities for over a decade, but this is the first one-on-one, deeply personal conversation I've ever had with her, and it was wonderful. I bet there are a lot of people that think they know Shelly Johnson. I'd say they may want to tune in for this one. This week is full up with live episodes. In fact, one of them may have already posted. Make sure to check those out and share them. Our live episodes often feature timely information. Besides that, they are a lot of fun. Go look up Find the Good News Live and find out what the Livewire Challenge with Lightning Round is all about. There's so much good news and many new guests are lining up for the remainder of 2019. I've got some really fun episode structures coming up that I think you're going to really enjoy. So make sure to subscribe to Find the Good News on your favorite listening platform. You can really help this show out by going to your favorite app and giving the show a great rating, or leaving a positive comment. Sharing your favorite episode with a few notes never hurts either. I really do appreciate any time that you have to give. It's time to vacate the announcements and enter the listening zone. Lay down your preconceived notions, pull your mental sheetrock down to the studs, knock out a wall or two if needed. Create an open floor plan for important, needed conversations to form, and then press play on a little good news. So many lives in Calcasieu Parish have been touched by suicide, and when we look at the rising statistics, we don't really find many answers as to why. Those left behind are left to wonder what went wrong or what they could have done to make a difference. Suicide leaves so many unanswered questions and feelings that run the entire emotional spectrum, leaving survivors looking for hope and healing. The particular type of grief that suicide places on the friends and loved ones left behind is so heavy. Often those who remain live from breath to breath. This is where Halos, which stands for Healing After a Loved One's Suicide, is exactly the saving grace that many are seeking. Core members of Halos, Jody Barrilleaux and Ted Thibodeaux, were gracious enough to come and visit me on Find the Good News, allowing this little podcast to be a small extension of their shining light. Having both lost dear and close family members to suicide, Ted and Jody know firsthand the fear, sorrow, anger, grief, and confusion that family and friends are left with when a loved one dies by suicide. Through Halos, Ted, Jody, and others have created a loving, safe, and exposed heart space that allows those grieving to share their pains, tell their stories, and say the names of their loved ones out loud. With time and exposure to others in the Halos groups, healing after suicide can begin. And though a loved one may have been lost, the survivors never have to be alone. Death by suicide can make those that remain feel as though their light was taken away. But through the work of Jody, Ted, and others in the Halos groups, sharing their love and experiential understanding, many have found their way back to brighter days.
You're helpless and you show it up. Candlelight to guide your life and chase the night away. I thank God. Wake up, it's morning. You're dreaming up a story I can hear the way it's going, 'cause you're laughing in your sleep on the path to your deliverance. and a holy wall of light pouring through your window.
Old news, bad news, fake news. Sometimes you just want to shut it all down and get no news at all. With Find the Good News, I aim to change that by focusing on good people doing good work. I visit with artists, educators, civic and spiritual leaders, musicians, business owners, students, volunteers, and everyday citizens who are using their creativity, resources, and talents to bring hope and happiness to their corner of the world. In each episode, I dig into the hearts and minds of my extraordinary guests. We have street-level conversations about relatable things going on in their lives. Discover the critical life experiences that shape them, the perspectives that drive them, and the fundamental beliefs that are anchoring them to a path of goodness. There's a lot of news in the world. My name is Oran Parker, and I'm going to find the good.
And I love you just as well.
The show is somber in a lot of ways because a lot of time we end up talking about pain.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the truth.
Because everybody's got it.
Everybody's got it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's kind of hard to ask people to come, well, like what we're here to talk about today. I mean, it's timely because this month is Suicide Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those topics that right out the gate, you say the word suicide and you go, okay, so who wants to go listen to a show about suicide?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I'm not making fun, but I mean, it's the truth.
That's our challenge.
It hits a challenge, yeah. I mean, and just right out of the gate, I think it's always better if I just pull the Band-Aid off. You know, our family's not untouched either.
Yeah.
So, I think sometimes it helps to say that. So, it doesn't seem like I'm just some person on the outside. I mean, I would say we were some of the more blessed because the person in our family who tried to commit suicide didn't succeed.
There you go. And that's another thing we can talk about. Why some make it, some don't. That is a big thing of what we kind of talk about. But no, let's go ahead and go. So that way, whatever we said, we are going.
We're going. That's how this show works.
Oh, Lord.
I already pulled the trigger.
I love it.
It's a trick.
I love it. That's a good trick. Good trick.
Yeah. But no, I mean, so, it's hard to tell what people should know, what they shouldn't know, and you can sort of list that stuff out. But then for me, I didn't know, if my relative was going to survive. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that, not after in the initial moments after you hear this news. And the way I describe it was like someone took and just lit a Molotov cocktail and just threw it inside of me, and everything just caught on fire. Okay,
now take that and you're going to bring to where we're at, because it did happen and it did succeed. So my question to you is, how is your loved one doing today?
Much better.
And what did they have to say? Are they willing to tell their story to help others?
That's why I haven't said who it is, because I'm not sure. That's okay. That's because
we would love that, because we want to share that part of that side as well.
Yeah. Again, here we go. The stigma of suicide. Mm-hmm. Even that person still feels like, I don't know if I can really talk about this, because it's a feeling like it's a dirty word, like it should be hidden from sight. We should never mention. It's the unnamed,
In my opinion, they're never off the radar.
Yeah.
Once they've said those words, feeling suicidal, or they actually try to go through the attempt of suicide. I've heard too many stories. No matter how much better, quote unquote, they get, and this is my personal opinion, they are always on the radar. You'd like to see them succeed. You want to be proven wrong that they're not. But people can tell you they're fine all the time, up to the day, the moment, the minute before. And so once you're alerted, to me, that's a blessing, because if they're on your radar, then it's your responsibility to keep them on the radar and keep checking in and find out.
Interesting that you're saying that, because that's the other level of it's a level of anxiety that you didn't have before. Now, just like you said, if too many days go by and I haven't heard anything, or I haven't received a phone call or just a text, or I can feel this anxiety begin to build, and I go, okay, I need to check.
It's almost like a PTSD.
It's like PTSD. I go, I have to check, but then I then have to go, well, but when I check, I need to be careful the way I check, right? I don't need to come in hot and go, oh, I'm just checking to make sure that everything, you know.
How you doing?
You know what I mean? It has to be very normal, even though you may be feeling like this heavy ball of anxiety about these simple things that other people go through.
And you have to try to be realistic that you can only do what you can do. You can't be with somebody 24 hours a day.
Right.
If you reasonably checking with them, doing what you can, and the inevitable or the worst thing happens, you can't fall on guilt. You can't. Now, guilt is a normal process you have to work out with everybody's relationship and what happens with suicide of a loved one. But you have to come to a place where, you know what, I've reasonably checked in. I've took their concerns. I went, whatever you had to do. And so, that's when we've lost someone to suicide, you have to come to that place. Everybody has to come to that place because it will just haunt and burden you.
Yeah, well, you can't lay on top. That's one of the thoughts I told somebody at one point. I said, well, in retrospect, I started thinking I would have had to have laid on top of them and never let them go anywhere. And you just can't do it.
And some people almost try. I mean, some people come to the meetings and they're worried about another family member, and you have to try to put that in perspective for them.
So they're like on vanguard, right? I mean, that's what they're like constant, like guarding that constantly.
It's a worry. It's a constant worry.
Yes. And to find that belief in whatever your system of belief is, because I too can share that about someone that I know as well.
Yeah.
And my personal story is with this person. Now that I know what I know, because I've lost my dad, which I'll talk about that in a minute, to suicide. But this person, I've truly, in my belief system, have released it because I'm sharing kindness and love and doing what I'm supposed to do. But every time I get a phone call or hear someone say something, it's always my thoughts. But in this world, especially in living with someone who died by suicide, that is the correct way to say it, because our folks didn't commit anything, so it's died by suicide. But the reason we're here today is to talk loud and proud, and it's so funny because I get louder when somebody talks about my daddy, because he died by suicide April 3rd of 2015, and he was a cowboy. He was a cool cat. People loved him from young and old, and he was just real laid back, come from that old way of not sharing your feelings and things like that. So this for me was truly out of left field. I now know that I am a minority because I have never had anybody in my circle to die by suicide, not to know them at all. 4 years later, that is absolutely unheard of, because once I bring it up, and it comes up, it does come up because I make sure it comes up because I want to talk about my dad. But almost every time somebody comes back with their story, and to see their face like, oh my goodness, I can talk about my loved one, because I'm going to do it. And that's why I restarted Halos, which is healing after a loved one's suicide. So we're talking about post-suicide, not talking about any kind of prevention, nothing like that. We've got two distinct forms of suicide in this area. Should I say things we talk about suicide? One is the preventive side, and then there's us, the post. There is no prevention in our world because it did not happen. And like Ted said earlier, we cannot. It's a part of the process and a part of the healing, the ifs, all the different things that you do need to go through. But we try to keep that path going so you can go through that path because it's so funny. It's 4 years for me, and I've come a long way, but I needed to go back, and I called Ted, and that was what's so cool about my story just a week or two ago, that I had to go back to what if I would have answered the phone when Dad called and talked about what are we going to do with the shrimp, because it was Good Friday the next day. What are we going to do? He left that message. We need a little plan. And I thought to myself, well, Daddy, we're going to fry some shrimp. But I didn't call him, or I didn't tell him. So I had to make myself feel those feelings which I didn't like it because I just, we don't like to feel that hurt and that stir. But I'm telling you, don't skip over a step, because it's a healing step that you need to go through. And I'm saying that from experience. So I did the step, and I did say, man, I wish I would have answered the phone. I wish it would if I would have, and I did all that. So I can now say after 4 years later, I did that particular step, and I can maybe help somebody along the way. And that's our whole goal with Halos, is to say, hey, where we are, I'm 4 years into it, 4.5 years into it. And I can tell you the different steps whenever these new ones come in. So let's just go back to the beginning. I'm Jody Barrilleaux. April 3rd, which was 2015, it was Good Friday. So I get a double whammy. I get not only Good Friday, I get the date, which is April 3rd. And for me, it's the Friday that affects me more than anything, if something else, not so much the date. I work for Hickson Funeral Home, and I deal with death every day. So when this happened, I knew I was going to do my dad's service one day. We had already talked about that 7 years ago, and I knew I was going to do it. And so I hit the ground running. It was early in the morning. 6:30 is about the time whenever they think the gunshot went off. And I don't mind sharing my story that way, if that's okay.
No, you can, please.
Because sometimes people need to share those type things, and I did. I was the type personality, I had to go get the shotgun from the sheriff department. And I'm just strange in the way I view death, because I guess I see it every day. And where Dad's concerned, my sister had called me that morning, because she was the one that actually found him in the front yard of his house when she was passing by. But after the fact, Daddy had put his truck kind of sideways, and I knew right away Daddy didn't mean for her to find him. I don't think
position things in a
I don't
way.
think, and people think that one stigma I want to completely shatter is, how can they do this, and how can they have done this, and they can do this. And can I tell you, the mind of someone who dies by suicide, only thing I can liken it to is, if you've had a bad day and you're a little depressed, magnify that 1,000,000 times, where we maybe made that next step and we made it. Well, our loved ones didn't. They come to a point where they didn't necessarily want it to die. They wanted their pain to end.
That's right. For
me, with my daddy, I had to do my homework. And that's just my personality. I had to go back, find out what happened, where did it come from. And after about probably about 5 or 6 months, I came to my conclusion after I heard of a conversation that was set around a campfire with just Daddy and this gentleman that lives in the area of where our camp was, when he shared with me, and it was kind of a weird thing how we even got together for him to share this with me, but it was what I needed to move forward. And Daddy had lost some friends to cancer, and he had just saw a dear friend die of cancer, in not a good way. And he made the comment around the campfire and was told to me that when it's my time, I'm just going to take care of it. So it wasn't a cry for help with Daddy. Daddy was 72 years old when this happened. So my conclusion is, I get it, Daddy. You was ready to go. You was just ready to go. You was done. You was done, because he had retired, and he did everything he loved to do, and his he didn't have any physical problems, because people want to ask about that, and that's okay to ask those questions, And for Daddy, it was more of his mind that he felt himself not having all his faculties together.
I see.
Now that I see what I see when I look back, because you do have to come to your conclusion in our world of suicide, because we've got to keep on moving on. So for me, that's what's helped me to move on. So to recreate this Halos, which was formed in 2011, I was looking after this happened to Dad, and I knew I had to go talk to somebody else. And what's so weird about this whole thing is, I am so pro organizations and things like that, because support groups, because there's nothing like talking to someone who has been exactly where you've been. Cancer, alcoholic, whatever the group is, man, I'm all behind them, because there's nothing like talking to someone who's had someone die by suicide. So I went looking, and I knew I couldn't do it. I knew I was too fresh into it. I had the personality to make it happen, but I knew losing my dad, I knew there was something else I needed. Well, of course, it was something bigger than me brought me to Amy Johnson. She lost her only son at 15 years old when he died by suicide. Mm-hmm. I remember the very first meeting when I opened her door of her office, and the love and compassion that she just exuded at me was unbelievable, because I knew this girl lost her son. It had been like, an only child. So this was met her on a July. So Dad died in April. July. It's so funny now that I look at the timeline. I'm like, wow, that's just, I mean, I was on a path. I was on something. And I said, we've got to reform this group. And she talked about halos. And so August of 2015 is when she and I opened the first door and said, come in. And for 4 years now, it's just been unbelievable, the folks that have come. Now, I didn't know anything about suicide, and unfortunately, life has made me not an expert, if you will, but someone who has sat around with a bunch of folks. But I can tell you loud and proud now that every one of those folks who died by suicide were the most precious souls there ever was. They were so kind. They just, this world was just too big for them, if you will. Mm-hmm. So we are on a path, Ted and I, and I'm so proud to have Ted a part of us now, because Amy's story is, because of halos, because of moving on with her journey, she come to a conclusion that she wanted to be closer to her parents in these last days of their lives. Mm-hmm. They're good, doing well, but they're getting older. So she's moved away and she's not here. So we've been without her for about 1.5 years now, but Ted Thibodeaux has stepped up to the plate. Sharon East lost her only son in 2000. I'm sorry, she has 2 sons, but she lost one of her sons when he was 25. I think so. In 2001. We always call her the old one, and we laugh about that. Not in age, but in length of time of losing someone. So we always refer back to her. Hey, where you think you were at? Because we have to do that. We have to go back to where the person is that's coming into our group. Then we have Regina Darbone. She lost her sister, and that's been, I can remember what's so vivid about Regina is when she walked into our meeting. It was probably not long after we started, could have been a year maybe, but I remember her crying and weeping so much. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, she must have just lost her sister. It had been 4 years, but the deal is with that, she never really put it to the forefront to allow herself to grieve and to move through the steps. So that's why that kind of taught us the lesson. If we could talk loud and proud about this organization, Halos, maybe if someone gets to us and starts on their path, they don't have to wait 4 and 5 years before they can go through that next step. Mm-hmm. And it is working is not the word, but it is true. It is a true statement, because we've had, like, the new ones that we've had coming, they've been coming for like a month and 2 months. And when we see them making these strides, we're like, oh my goodness, it just gives us, helping others is what helps us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the truth.
Yeah.
It gives us purpose.
It does.
Yep. And anyway, so that's kind of my story. And I am everybody, like I said, these personalities, we are called the core group, us 4. And Ted, I'm just unbelievably overwhelmed at Ted and what he brings to the table, because he's so organized and so, he just does such a, it takes all of us and our personalities, and I'm not like that, but I can get out there and I can talk loud about it and I can give us a platform, but it's Ted that can come in and bring some wonderful different things like paperwork and things that can make these people move forward in a physical way, whether they do projects or things like that. But so I'd like to to move it over to Ted Thibodeaux.
Ted Thibodeaux. I lost my only child, my daughter Lindsay, in 2017, January 16th. And I knew she was going through, relationship problems and, things with life, but nothing to the extent of a suicide. I had got custody of her when she was 1.5 years.
Okay.
And raised her as a single parent, so we were just so close. She lived here in Lake Charles, and we visited several times a week, went to lunch. We were just that involved. And so for that to happen to me, I'm like, this can happen to anybody.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah. For me not to detect it to that kind of level, it can happen to anybody, So, and I didn't know of anyone else in our family or friends that had died by suicide. That's new to me. And so this was January 16th, 2017. The next month, in February, my friend, my next door neighbor, right next door to me, took his life. And so, I'm still reeling. I'm a month into it. And so here we go again. And then another 1.5 months later, my cousin takes his life. And so I wasn't close to him. I knew his mother, and we had visited before, but they lived further away. But it was the same family. The same family going through another suicide in 3 months. And then a month after that, in May, my brother took his life. So the same family 3 times in 4 months, this is going on. So, you just pray a lot. You try to find, and like Jody said, you try to find some help out there. I had heard of a group in Lafayette called the Jacob Crouch Foundation.
Okay.
And someone else told me about Halos. And at that time, Halos was only meeting once a month in Sulphur. And so I attended, and to have to think I'd have to go a whole nother month before another meeting, it was inconceivable. I was like trying to get from one breath to the next, or 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day. And so to think about this meeting that I needed to try to wait a whole month, it was, and so I heard about another group which is called the Compassionate Friends, and it's the loss of a child by any cause, accident, disease, suicide.
Okay.
So I started going to that. It was kind of filling the gaps within, here in Lake Charles, they have a group that meets. And there's also a group that meets in Lafayette. So I was catching that one. So I was going 3-4 meetings a month, and it was just getting me to the next. Exactly. Right. And so you have to process all these things. Something that's probably the number one emotion is anger. Fortunately, I didn't have that.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Yeah, but
but we've no, it is a
people come through
there.
the group, but I mean it's like fresh.
Right.
It's they're mad at God.
Yeah.
They're mad at themselves. They're mad probably mostly at the person who took their life. In different situations, they could be mad at someone else, family or friends that they may have thought caused it or pushed the person to this point, or knew and didn't do anything. So you have a whole lot of dynamics that goes on within families and situations. That. But so anger was not mine, fortunately. But you have guilt. I mean, I'm a parent. How could I not know my child was going through this and I'm not see it?
Yeah.
You have denial. Some people just can't believe it's true, and you kind of live in that little world for a little while until it fully sinks in. You have the guilt, the stigma, also from suicide, which I'm glad people are able to talk about it more. I'm glad you're doing these podcasts like that, because it's getting the word out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with a lot of the celebrities that have taken their life, the silver lining, if you will, is that it's got in the news. It's forcing the people to talk about it.
Yeah.
And some of these celebrities, you feel like you knew them. Like, you've seen so many movies or concerts or music, and you just it's almost like them.
You feel connected.
And it's like part of your extended family almost for some people. And so, but it forces it down. It forces a conversation to happen. And in the 2 years I've been with Halos, I find that a lot of times just talk to people, whether it's the cashier. We get in the habit of just doing these rudimentary operations and motions and routines, chores, what have you. We'll go through the drive-through and we're just worried about our Whopper or a Big Mac, whatever, and get in bag. You check the bag and drive off. But that's not a robot there. You just interacted with somebody.
Human being,
somebody, the cashier at the grocery store. They'll say, "Hey, how you doing?" And go back, and then there's no conversation. So personally, what I've done, I've tried to just take it to another level and interact with that person and live in the moment. I try not to meet a stranger. If I see a stranger, I feel like a stranger is somebody who is a friend you just haven't talked to yet. And so, and that's how I live now, because you don't. Yesterday's in the past. Tomorrow may not happen. So who's ever in front of you right now, that's the world. That's your life. That's what's going on.
And I'm happy, I know it. I'm helpless.
Sorry for interrupting the conversation, but I have something I need to tell you about. You may or may not know this, but this podcast is produced in the city of Sulphur, Louisiana, one of the sister cities that make up Southwest Louisiana. All of my childhood memories are wrapped up in the city of Sulphur. It's my home, and it's been a good home for most of my life. There is a growing diversity of unique businesses, services, and events in Sulphur, each with a rich and colorful story to tell about their particular place in this little jewel on the west side of the Calcasieu River. My mission is to promote good news, to put a positive signal out in the world. That's why my team at Parker Brand Creative Services has created the new brand, Sulphur Today. Here's how it works. Post your Sulphur event, service, photos, videos, or information using the hashtag #SulphurToday. That's it. My team and I will scan and curate those posts through the social media platforms we've put in place. Before you make your post, just type hashtag. That's a # for the folks that don't know what a hashtag is. And the words Sulphur Today with no space. My team at Parker Brand is monitoring this tag right now, and they're ready to create positive digital curb appeal for our city by sharing all the very best Sulphur has to offer through the Sulphur Today social media pages. As the Sulphur Today project grows, we will be scheduling interviews and video sessions with businesses, events, and services so they can tell their story of Sulphur Today in a series of ongoing micro-documentaries. Look for the eye-catching Sulphur Today sign when you're out and about. And be ready, we may be stopping by to visit you for a photo op. And don't forget to stop by the Parker Brand Creative Services studio in Sulphur to grab a Sulphur Today decal for your vehicle or business. We want people visiting our area to know that they can find all the wonderful things we have to offer with ease and be a part of our history by utilizing the Sulphur Today pages or by searching the Sulphur Today hashtag. Do you want to help us tell the story of Sulphur Today? Here's what I need you to do right now. Visit and like the Facebook page at facebook.com/Sulphur Today. And be sure to share positive Sulphur information and post often using the hashtag Sulphur Today. Now, back to Find the Good News.
I love you just as well.
You might be able to tell. I mean, it's kind of got my heart quivering because that's such a big, it's a big driver behind why we do this show. And, if I wouldn't think I'd get choked up about this. I mean, we're talking about suicide, but it's just that in and of itself, what you just said there, is connecting with other human beings as human beings. Even today at lunch, this is this recurring background thought that hits me all the time, is how I want to layer by layer, day by day, to stop identifying myself as anything that's keeping me from looking at another human being as a brother or a sister or just the same species,
Correct.
So sometimes I even have a thought like that, like when I think of myself as a Louisianian, then I'm not a Texan. and then there's a divide. But you know, there's a story. One, I can't remember who it was, but one of the astronauts on this documentary said, you know, when she looked down at the Earth, it was the first time she ever felt like a human being. You know, she'd always felt like an American, and she said that she never felt like an American ever again. She said when she came back, she just felt like she was a part of this big organism, you know. And you know, she got teary-eyed when she was talking about it. It's like, that's a great epiphany. And what you're saying about connecting with people and seeing them as people, you're so right. I mean, we have to just resist that compulsion to get on autopilot.
And you never know what somebody is going through.
That's right.
Never.
Exactly. I was, with those exact words you just said, I do service work in Southwest Louisiana 5 Parish area. And I happened to go into Grand Lake Elementary School. And it surprised me, on the wall in the hallway, they had that same saying, is that you don't know what someone else is going through. So this is like elementary kids trying to get them on that kind of mindset. And it's true. And when you talk to people, if you just give people a little dignity, you know, a little respect, and a chance for them just to speak on a normal basis, ask them how their day is going, but mean it.
Man, you know what's so cool too? It's easy, and it's written in a lot of different leaders in our past, but to treat others how you would want to be treated is exactly the way we should talk with each and every one of us. How would you like to be treated?
Yeah. I mean, pain shared it's divided at that point. I mean, and that's really, I talk about this a lot on this show, the word compassion. We say it so often, but when you really look at what it means to suffer with. And for the culture we live in, I find that that's a message that we don't want to receive. To suffer with, to take someone's pain and carry it with them, well, that's not my pain, that's their pain. But it literally heals us when we do that. When we listen to someone else, and I would take compassion not just as suffering, but if someone wants to has a need to share something, if we just give them a moment to do that, just a piece of our heart, just a little piece, it's good for us too. We find all these different little dimensions inside of our heart that just sort of wake up all of a sudden if we allow it to.
Because, like, you know, you said that when you look at the bigger picture, we're just one organism.
Yeah.
You know, and we truly are our brothers and sisters. We all are wanting the same thing, and that's what's so cool about. I love. Because when you do the Google Earth thing, just like you said, she looked down and, oh my gosh, it got bigger. Another thing that is something that we are really want to say with Halos is that the way a person leaves this earth does not define who they were.
Yeah.
And we say it boldly in our group. But if you think about it, if somebody dies from cancer, that's not who they were.
Right.
And you know what? And living what you talk about, my dad, I knew I was going to do a service. Okay, so I faced the elephant in the room. And I said, I don't want anybody leaving this room thinking of my daddy and need out of the way.
Yeah.
And I faced it, and you know, in that time I knew nothing about suicide, but whatever the way I put it, they knew what I was talking about. It's like I got the elephant out of the room. And I kid you not, for 45 minutes, we were laughing. They were signing my daddy's casket, lined up to do it. If people would have been on Highway 90 by Hicks and Sulphur, that's where we were, they really would have thought we've lost our minds. That when we came out and we were smiling, and matter of fact, I think someone I got a picture because my daddy wrote, my husband, who was my husband's best friend, my daddy and he, and it tore my husband up for a long time. His feelings got tucked away for a long time, and he's just now released it. I just wanted to say that real quick. But he laughed and he said, you know, I get to ride KT in the Cadillac.
Yeah.
So he rode with me, you know, and at the cemetery had the good dear friend Greg, who sang, you know, got his guitar and sang to him, and that thing was covered with people's beautiful messages toward him, and we sent him off and we celebrated his life. So I can say life is to be celebrated. So when someone passes away, because I can say my dad died tragically, but I was determined to celebrate their life. So we can kind of help folks to remember that. And we are to live this life to be able to celebrate it now, celebrate it later.
See, I like this because this is This is the territory. I mean, and I can only speak from my own life, but to me, this is the territory that begins to heal a lot of things, because we're talking about suicide, but really what we're talking about is life and death, and beginning to look at both of those things in completely much healthier ways, right? I mean,
that is a great way to put that. Let's just talk about that just a second. A more healthier way.
Yeah.
That is excellent.
Well, we don't
Ted,
talk about death.
I love that.
We're afraid of it. We're taught to fear it. We go to the doctor to keep it away. We do all this stuff to stay healthy and young. And I mean, that has nothing to do with suicide, but we do all of that because we're taught that death is to be feared. It's fine. It's a final thing. And again, you can get off into systems of belief, which I try to be careful about, because everybody has their own framework, and which is fine with me. But for me, I've said this, and it's easy to say when you haven't lost anybody, okay? And we are talking about
I'm just
loss.
telling you, when the rubber hits the road, you're gonna examine your belief system.
Well, it's kind of like my dad. I mean, he passed away 4 years ago, and very horrible to look at illness. Okay. Wasn't a peaceful death.
Yeah.
It was pain and suffering, and to even look at him was painful, and it has a lot of negative to it. And if I allow myself to live, and if I go in, and I'm going to mention one of my past podcast guests, his name's Mike Brignac. He talks a lot about using your imagination in a powerful way. If I use my imagination in a powerful way, I can bring myself back to the texture of like that reality of that last time I saw my dad in the hospital. I can literally see the glistening of the water in his eyes. Wow. And there's times when I dream about just his eyes being full of water, and that's very real. But that is my dad's used up body. It isn't the life that he lived. And so what I've learned to do to make peace is I honestly, and I say this very plainly to most people, I said, I know consciously that my dad is dead, and I'm using quotey fingers for people who can't see. I know that he's dead, but I don't feel like it. Mm-hmm. I feel like he's alive, because when I use my imagination, I can go there and see him and smell him and hear him and touch him, and it's just as if he were here when my eyes are closed. We have conversations with him, and he's young and healthy, and he's even a better than the way that I truly experienced him. So through his death, I'm able to see him in a fuller way. It's the strangest thing, and that doesn't sound great to some people. They're like, well, that's not reality. I said, it's my reality in my heart, and that's how I see him with love. That's how so I don't think of him as just this thing that blipped out of existence.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And this whole thing is about love. That's one thing I find that, or in my little world, there's no one that's offended, because I represent nothing but love. That's my personal belief and my personal choice. So nobody's really, they don't mind talking with me. And I think if we continue to share that, what is love? It's basically being kind to one another. Simply, and helping people go through exactly what you're going through. And I think you're going to help somebody that's listening today that has lost someone, because you beautifully said it correctly the way that it should be done. And it's funny because I just had a dream last night about Dad, and it's been a while, but it brought back a memory. I'm 56, but when I graduated from high school, it brought this memory in my thought, because there's a picture and he wore a suit. My daddy was not a suit-wearing type of a man, never. But what it did and brought me joy and peace and love today is, wow, my daddy thought that much about me and my graduation day that's how he chose to dress. And it just lightened my day and my heart and my spirit today. So every day we've got to look for those little nuggets, because they're everywhere.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I'll be careful about how I talk about this, but it's like when my loved one tried to commit suicide. It was basically a drug overdose with the intent to die.
Yeah.
It was what was accessible, and this was how they were going to do it. But because they didn't die and there was an extreme intake of drugs, that's going to create a lot of physical reactions. So when I got to the hospital, what I saw was a nightmare version of the person that you love. Eyes doing things that are abnormal, body doing things that are abnormal. And I remember being in the hospital thinking, and they didn't know at that time, what was going to happen. They said, could be brain damaged, could be you're going to be taking care of this person, feeding them for the rest of their life. I just didn't know. And so I remember being in the hospital. We had lost Dad not too long before that. And I remember that lesson, that imagination, that image of Dad's eyes was very powerful in that hospital, because I remember thinking, right now, this could be the image that gets burned in my head of this person. But this is not the whole person. This is also the person that I knew when they were very little and, saying sweet things and helping me do things. This is also this person. I think sometimes we can wrap people's whole existence up in this one moment. Like you said that already, but I mean, just to wherever they land is who they are. But we're all of it. We're everything from the day you're born to then all the sweet things. I mean,
so many aspects to a life.
Yeah. And we should, I've always said this even about my dad, and I hope someone will say it about me someday, is that you get credit for everything. You get credit for the dastardly, terrible things that you did, but you get credit for the good things too. You can't just go, oh, they were a real son of a bitch one time, and then it's like, well, that's who they are. It's not who these people are.
Exactly.
And
we're complex.
For sure.
Very much so. And and we had kind of talked about that, why some make it and some don't. We have not the answer for that. So this would be a great time for us to go ahead and talk about the two distinctive sides to suicide, or those who are trying to help in that area. And we're so proud of Kevin Yachty's. He's Dr. Kevin Yachty's from McNeese. He has taken on the Out of the Darkness Walk
this weekend,
this year. Right? It is this weekend, this Saturday. Halos, we have done it the last 3 years, and we're glad to do it. But what we love about now and where we are in the community is to know the two distinctives. We've got Kevin, who wants to really, he wants to send his psychology students over there at McNeese. They want to do this research and try to get better at how can we prevent. Well, that is awesome, and that's what this walk's going to be about. And it's going to be about the two things, really. The walk is, right. And then of course we have distinctively set ourselves aside as the post-suicide, because we want people to know that, if you lose someone to suicide, or if you have lost someone to suicide, there is a group here that understands the pain that you're going through, and you're welcome to come join us. So Saturday, it's going to be the two coming together to walk, because everyone that's walking there are walking because they've lost someone to suicide. Yeah. And then there are some that are going to be walking that they lived past the pain that they were feeling, and they have got the help they need, and whatever the reason is, they're still here. So it's kind of like in everything in life. If you're still here, you've got this journey. Ted just talked about a horrible within a 6 month period, but he's still here. So what is he here to do? Well, he's got his mission and what it is basically what we all have. To love, to care for others, to be compassionate to others, to be the light that people are looking for. Not that we can save everybody from everything that they're going through, but we can be a light and a pointer. I always say we are a glorified pointer. So if somebody comes to us, we can, especially if they're suicidal, we can point them in the right direction. Yeah. And then if of course they need us at Halos Healing After a Loved One Suicide, we're here, and basically we sit in a room and we just let people talk, and we just let them share, and we let them say the things that stigma will have them say until we learn better. Because that's like when they sit in here in our room, they're like, my loved one committed suicide, and we get to say, well, you know what, the correct way to say it is they died by suicide, because we didn't connect it. And it's not that it was a bad thing, it's just something as we learned. I would have not ever, like, one of our gals would say, I could have done my whole life meeting in any of y'all, but because we've dealt the same thing, we've become this family. And it's really crazy. And I think Ted can attest to this. When we meet a new person, it's like a kindred spirit like no other, because it brings us back. And that's why I call us heroes. Some of them don't. Ted and Sharon and Regina, at first we can't, because we had the seminar Halos Heroes. And no, we're not really heroes, but I say we are, because we have to rip that Band-Aid. Well, I have to rip the stitches. I have to actually rip that scar that's already there to maybe to help someone else, because I remember those early days and the pain. It's still there. It's still there. But you do learn to live with certain things in this life and how you can go on, and you never get over it. It's kind of like Willie Nelson's song, Wish We Had It. Do you ever play music?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's Willie Nelson. It's not something we get over. It's something we get through.
Yeah.
That is a cool song.
Love that too. You're right.
And we do. And so, my little world, I'm passionate about Halos. I'm not passionate about other things that people are, because that's their gig. That's I just Alzheimer's group and the cancer groups, and like I said, I have I'm in the AA world. I've got someone I love that is a recovering alcoholic, for over 6 years now, and I love it when these people get so excited about their groups, because I am so pro support group, because there's nothing like talking, I said it before, I'll say it again, to someone who's been through, and someone who died by suicide. We can sit there and actually just look and cry with them and know the pain. And I say that it's different because I remember first when this happened, probably 4 or 5 months into it, I went to a counselor because I could get it free. I'm normally the counselor. I'm a celebrant. I always laugh. I tell people I can marry you or bury you. I'm a minister of love, and that's all I'm about. So I can do all that kind of stuff. And most people would talk with me, but I went and talked with a counselor, and one of them said, well, so-and-so, this other counselor just lost their daddy. Maybe you want to talk to him. That's when I said, hell no. And I'm sorry. I heard you say a red word. I can say that word.
No, we can say whatever we want. It's a podcast. Well, ain't nobody regulating
Well, let's tell you, because I say hell no, because for me, I don't want to talk to anybody who lost their daddy. I mean, I get it, and I lost that. But to lose someone to suicide is a whole different animal.
It is.
A whole different animal. I lost my mama just a year, not even 2 years ago, so it was 2.5 years. Mama was just beginning. She'd come to one of our Halos meeting, and her thought, her hurt was when she spoke up, and because she's more quiet, she wasn't like me, but she was worried about my sister, who's quiet like her, that found him, and when she shared that, I saw her heart. But then she passed away unexpectedly, and that was tough. But what was the blessing for me is I got to be with her when she took her last breath. I got to be with my grandmother when she took her last breath. So it was a totally different loss. But to lose someone who just hurt so much in this life that they felt it'd be better if they just left, and to hear other people talk, that's exactly the way they think, that they're doing you a favor, or they're they truly feel like I don't want to be a burden on anybody anymore. And if we could have told them, we would have shared with them, you're not a burden, we're here to help you. But in their mind, and they thought that way. So one meeting, whenever what helped me the most is thinking of, I don't know why it was brought up, maybe I was thinking of the actual shotgun, and my daddy was in the front yard, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I guess I'm always looking for the positive side, that the minute he left this world with the agony, the next second for me, he was living he felt the peace that he had always wanted. That is my personal belief, and that's what gets me through the day. And I only thought I had that belief, and let me tell you what, until the rubber hits the road, I'm telling you, I never did believe that away as much as I do now. So now it's gotten sweeter to think that away. And then I'm always looking for my signs, because I'm a sign believer, in my numbers or the things that happen. And to encourage others when they share that their signs, or to be looking, or what's cool is don't really look at them, because you find them when they just pop up in your face, which is beautiful, a beautiful thing.
That's a beautiful thing to talk about right there. I also I call them the nodes, or the intersections of information sometimes, where there's maybe a set of colors or sounds or even sigils that are surrounded a person throughout their life, and then all of a sudden there's this big intersection of all these things out of nowhere, and it's very relevant at a relevant time. I think you have to look for that kind of stuff. That to me, you're entering into this dimension of relationship with the person still. I think that about my dad all the time, that there's still a relationship there. I don't feel... It's not like the best way I can describe it to somebody, for me anyway, is like, it's not the kind of relationship I have with my child where I can put my human lips on their cheek and they can feel my kiss. It's a relationship with somebody who no longer has lips to kiss me with, so the relationship is new.
Right.
It's like a new relationship.
Right.
It's kind of more, it's in its own way, it's just as beautiful.
Right. And what I love about it, we're getting so deep, in our thoughts and our thought process. And what I love about Halos is the gamut of folks that come and their beliefs. So we really try to keep it open with whatever your belief is. We don't care. We don't judge. Whatever your belief system is now, and everyone that sits there has love in their heart for their loved one that's gone. That's all that matters to us. So it's really kind of cool when we can share what gets one person through the day. One person may quote from a book. One may bring something else, but we can all take something from us. And that's where Ted does such a great job. We just come with an open heart and a willingness to help as a peer-led group, and to let people share what they want to share. And don't, we can cuss, we can say what we believe, we can say what we don't believe. We don't give a flip, like you said. We're here and they're there to get some sort of help, man, to get them through that next breath, like he said. I'm telling you what, we can remember vividly having to remember to breathe. And I kid you not. And people may have felt that kind of grief.
And people feel a relief when you can tell them that, because they're...
Gives them permission.
Yeah, sometimes they're thinking it, or they don't realize that's all it is. Like, that's as simple as it is. Just take a deep breath. Because you got so many emotions and so many thoughts going, and you're trying to process so much at one time. It's just like, breathe deep. And you can do that, and you can see in their eyes like it's the light bulb goes off.
And I'm happy, I know it. I'm helped.
I hate to pause the program, but I want to ask you something. Did you know that you can help me and my team at Parker Brand Creative Services grow the Find the Good News signal? For less than a fancy cup of coffee, you can become an Early Risers Club patron on our Patreon page. What's Patreon? Well, it's a way for creators to fund their projects by pooling support from those really passionate people that believe in what they're doing. Do you believe in what we're doing with Find the Good News? I hope you do. We believe that there's already enough negative news in the world, even right here at home, and that good people doing good works deserve a platform to speak from too. That's why we created Find the Good News, and we believe in that simple mission. Maybe you believe in it too. If you do believe in finding and sharing good news, then head over to our Patreon page right now, or check out the link in the show description. For a commitment of $3.33 a month, you can join the Early Risers Club of Find the Good News Patreon supporters and get access to the B-Sides, a patrons-only podcast with the crew behind Find the Good News, Parker Brand Creative Services. Each time we level up, the Patreon rewards will get bigger. If you're tired of old news, bad news, and fake news, help support Find the Good News at patreon.com/findthegoodnews. That's patreon.com/findthegoodnews. Now, back to the episode.
I love you just as well.
For me, I live for that, because the people who come who are new, we've had some who came and just within the same week they found us. Recently, some like the next month or within 2 months. I didn't find Halos till about 5 months or so, and so I was in agony. I wish I could have found Halos. So, and when they come to the first meeting, they realize this is like nothing else. Like, I can't talk to some of my family, even our friends at work. I've been working with people for 28 years where I'm at, and I've been blessed that they will allow me to have a bad day, or if it looks like I'm having a bad day, they'll ask me, but not everybody has that kind of job or work with some of those kind of co-workers. Depends, and sometimes it's your pride that you don't want to, seem vulnerable, what have you. And so I'm kind of blessed in that respect. But for the people who are just coming to the meetings, you have to, whether it's been a month or it's been 5 years, you have to reach back to them and find out where they are. Mm-hmm. Because we're all on Jody is 4.5 years. I'm going on 2.5. And so our commonality is that we have lost someone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so all their emotions are still there. It might be high emotion you may have not dealt with, or you're still struggling with, or maybe you kind of beat it back some and it's low. So as we share, each one of us shares our story, you just become more this united unit. And for someone who's thinking about coming to one of our meetings, we meet twice a month. The first Tuesday is in Sulphur at the Hampton Inn at 6 o'clock. And it's a peer-led group, and you just show up. You don't have to talk if you're not ready, but I invite you to just come and at least hear the other stories. And very few people come and end up not talking because they just realize how warm of an environment and how easy it is to share these emotions. And you wanting to talk, you wanting to hear your loved one's name. Mm-hmm. When it's kind of an odd thing when somebody dies by suicide, they're talked about less, because it seems like if somebody's going to bring it up to you, they don't want to bring it up to you because they know how painful it is, and to them too. And but you're just dying to hear their name. You're dying to hear. Tell me a story about it. What do you remember about them? How's it? And so it's like that with anyone who has passed, but for suicide, it's harder for people to bring it up.
And it's like, I love what Ted hit when he first did it, man. It was just so cool. So every now and then I'll just kind of, let's do that, Ted. And we go around the room and we just say, give a good memory. Yeah. And to see the smiles and the love just coming across somebody's face to be able to talk about them. My biggest thing I can remember, of course, like I said, I view death a little bit different because I see it all every day. Right. But I can remember the week before Daddy passed away, we went to the little bar down the road because Daddy was a good dancer and we loved to dance. And I remember dancing with him, and for some reason, it's like I put on a recorder in my mind and when I danced with him, and I can now absolutely dance in my mind with him. So that's just a beautiful memory for me, is to literally dance with my daddy again. So, and to hear the different ones go around, because we're so used to talking about the day it happened or whatever. So to see their facial expressions and their body language turn to just like you said, when they were vibrant and loving, yes, a happy memory,
of an exchange or
encounter. So we do not have this wonderful little program that we have, and it's already done. It's raw, and it could be hard at times, but we're there, and I think that's what our group is wanting, and I truly believe this is what the world is wanting, kind of what we're doing today. Be real. People are wanting to see you real. Mm-hmm. So when you shed a tear, or you talk about whatever it is you need to do, you need to cuss if you need to, whatever it is, people just want you to be real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm a big advocate of allowing ourselves to be tender, which so often, especially I think with men too, we're expected to be hard and be able to toughen up and wrestle our emotions and just bury that stuff down in a box and get through it. And I find that just being tender and like kind of almost the visual for me is just taking my heart out of my chest and laying it on the table.
Being vulnerable.
Be vulnerable. Right. Like it's okay
to
just let that stuff, grief especially. And I guess it's strange because we, our loved ones survived their suicide attempt, but at the same time, near vicinity of that is losing dad. So it's like they're kind of married together in my mind, these two different types of pain. And what I learned is that grief unchecked comes back in weird ways. It's like, I've always thought of it as like a leak under the sink that you don't know you have.
Yeah.
And then one day all of a sudden you open it up and you're like, oh my gosh, there's like mold and stuff in here. I didn't even know this was leaking.
That's a good analogy.
Wow. Okay. With that thought, you just brought an analogy for someone who has died by suicide about the cup and the water. That was absolutely.
What's that?
I don't have it in front of me, but it's something I ran across lately, and we're always looking for the why. when somebody takes their life, you can put some of the pieces together, but hindsight, as you talk to people, this was going on, that was going on. And this article talked about the cup, and it's basically, if you think about a cup that is filled to the top with water, and it looks full, but you can put one more drop in there, and then it almost runs over. And you can put one more little drop, and then it runs over. So people who are struggling internally with suicidal thoughts, their cup is full. And you don't know what next little drop. It can be what you think is insignificant, you know. But to them, that little drop is what pushes them over the edge. Yeah. And so it was just very well written. I can get it to you.
I like that. I'd like to hear that. That's a great way to put that, because, and it gets back to what we originally talked about treating people just better. Just treat people better. It sounds so overly simple,
and
but
it is.
Just every engagement, whether it be at the grocery store or whether it's with your sales rep on the phone or even through email or whatever, do your best to just treat the other person that's receiving your life force through communication better. Right.
Well, and nice. And you know who the one you need to look for, because this is another thing where people have said this before, but it's easy to be kind to someone that's kind to you. The one you really must do it is that one that just wants to give you a hard time. And when you truly come back to someone with a love or a kind word, guess what? It just puts it out like a fire. So if we can remember that, the loved one, that's easy. You don't have to think about that one. It's those one that's giving you a hard time.
It is hard.
Is where you can turn things around, and I don't know. It's kind of a cool thing if you think, when you look at it, and especially when you could see somebody's, you can just, like I said, they've had a bad day or whatever it is, and you just, I'm sorry, or take it upon yourself. It was my fault. I'm so sorry. Oh,
and if you're nice first, then it throws the jerks off.
Yeah, and our ego doesn't want to do that, right? Our ego wants us to be on top and not have to be the one to apologize or to be lower or more humble. And so it's very difficult, especially in our culture. I always bring that up, and I don't want to blame. We have choices to make, obviously, but the culture definitely has that message out there, that
but we can change. Well, let me tell you what, we can change our community, and that's why I always say, if you're in my arm's length, or that's how we help the whole world, or save the whole world, or show the whole world love, is one ripple at a time. Because the ripple's going to continue to go. So if we can just, anything that we can do as a group, as a human being, in general, to maybe to help someone in their next step, that's what we want to do, and it makes us better people, I think.
And I love this. It makes me think of that cup you talked about. What you guys are doing is basically, in a way, saying, hey, I know your cup is full. I've had some time and I don't have as full a cup anymore. I'll take some of that out of there and help you carry that.
There you go.
Okay.
Pour some into mine.
Yeah, pour some into mine. I can help you with that. And that's, that was the thing about suicidal behavior. It doesn't always look, for me, in our life, it didn't look like suicidal behavior. It looked like someone acting like they didn't want you around. Yeah. When really, in hindsight, it's that person driving everybody away so they... I'm be careful here too, because I don't want it to sound like I mean literally, but it almost like the suicidal thoughts almost act like a demon almost. It's like trying to drive out everything that's good around you and isolate everybody away, push everybody away so it can have you and destroy you, basically. And so that's kind of the behavior we saw, where it was like, this person's being really nasty, this person's pushing everybody away, this person's being mean, that this person doesn't want anybody around. And then your reaction then is, well, then fine, you don't want me around, I won't be around. Well, that's exactly what that thinking wants. Isolate me. Isolation. Now the people who love you aren't around you. You know what I mean?
It's the opposite of what they need.
You see, it's exact opposite, but and then on the surface you're not going, oh, they're suicidal. Right? You're just going, they're hard to be around. Right? It's like this weird porcupine mode that sort of drives all things out.
Yeah. Because like I said, why some make it, some don't. And that's in life and death, period. Like I said, we're at the funeral home, I'm like, why did this one wake it? Why did that one? We don't. And it's so cool when you can really just be human and say, you know what, I just don't get it. Yeah. But I don't have to get it. Right. I don't have to get it. Just go with it. Guess what? Today I was given a day. I'm enjoying myself. That's why me personally, I'm going to get involved with everything that means something to me, and I'm going to do it the top I can. And my whole goal is, as I'm doing something, maybe it'll bring somebody else along to say, I want to leave this world better than what I found it. I think we all do, sure. And it just takes us to maybe be a leader in the community to do that. So, anything we can do to help, we want to. But, of course, today we're talking about halos and healing after a loved one's suicide. And I wish we would have never had to have this conversation. But unfortunately, it's here, and it's going to be here, too. I'm not a gloom and doom type thing, but we just want people to know that we're here. If it ever happens, if it comes in your wheelhouse, we're here to be help where we can.
So how do people, if someone is like listening to this or somebody passes the information along, I mean, what's the best way for them to connect with you? I know you said the meetings are every 2 weeks, right? And
that's that great social media,
yeah.
Facebook.
You have a Facebook page?
Halos, HALOS, Halos. Okay. Yes, we try to, we keep up, I put our stuff on there and, let people know what's going on. We also have, like I said, this Saturday they have, it's called Out of the Darkness Walk. It's by AFSP, which is the National Prevention Suicide Organization. They put this on all over internationally. So there's going to be a bunch of folks walking for those who love, and they're celebrating life. And then
we're going to be out there.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, we'll have a table also.
Oh, great.
We'll have a table with our stuff on there, and just kind of point them in the right directions if they want to come to a meeting. But something else that we've done with Halos, because we do that every November, AFSP's has a Survivor Day, and it's a special day where
really?
They have we have a film that it kind of talks with like several different families and kind of a structured type of thing, and that we host that. And this year it will be at the Brick House. And while I'm talking about the wonderful community, every place we have, the Hampton Inn, the hospital, Christus Lake area, that's where we'll have it tonight. We have a meeting tonight.
Really?
At 6 o'clock.
At
we're in the Christus Lake area
on
hospital on Nelson.
Okay.
In
Nelson
the bin.
Nelson
on Nelson,
Sale.
yeah.
Okay.
It's in the Ben Mountain boardroom. You'll enter at the day surgery back there.
Yeah.
They let us have it there. The Brick House, which is right there by McFarland's Pub, it's a beautiful catering place.
Yeah.
Miss Mary over there who owns it allows us to have it there free of charge.
Wow.
Maryland's Treasures of Maryland's, we've had it there free of charge. We've got wonderful people who because we don't want anything, we just want so you lose someone to suicide, that's hard enough. To have to pay for something or go to somewhere, you don't have to do none of that. Anything we ever offers, free of charge. And of course the Survivor Day's in November, but of course everything's going to be on Halos. But we'll have a meal and we'll have that. And then in the spring, this is something brand new we've done since Halos. We make up it was Halos Heroes one time, just different things, because we feel like some people may come to a seminar type thing just to sit there quietly and maybe think they don't have to talk. So we have that one in the spring, we have this in the fall, they have the walk, we have our meetings, and so that's kind of what we have to offer, and it's on our Halos Facebook page.
So they don't have to be alone. You don't have to be counting alone. Your breaths and
you do not have to be
clenched
alone.
Up.
Yep.
Halos is always here. We have our phone numbers out there. There's 4 core group members. Jody, Sharon, Regina, and I. And we have our email address. You can contact them on Facebook. I send out emails once you've come to a meeting or you give me your email address. I keep that going to where we stay in contact.
That's great.
So I don't sleep a lot, so somebody can call me anytime they want to, day or night. I'll talk to you.
I'll tell you, that's actually great. Since we started this show, I've been kind of surprised by how many times different guests have brought up suicide on it, or have been touched by it, a relative, a friend, and then even people who have been on the show after they've been on the show and even talked about suicide, then they've had another loss, just like what you were describing, where it was back to back to back. And I just go, okay, there's this thread that just keeps running through all these people, and it just seems like nobody's untouched.
No.
In Calcasieu Parish, and Jody may remember the numbers better, but as of April, they had 18 suicides in Calcasieu Parish. and it's high for the parish. It's gotten even higher since, and I want to say we're up to doubling that last year.
Well, they said it's
on target for
48% higher or something like that in Calcasieu Parish.
And they want to ask, what they think it is, and I just. There is no. I don't believe there's no rhyme or reason to it. I think it's just more prevalent because it's more in the media now. Like you said, it used to not be as much in the media, but because of Hollywood and things like that.
Yeah.
But what I love about our Facebook page and what we do, we have helped thousands of people, and let me tell you why. It's not because they come through our doors. It's because when you see a like or a click on a Facebook, we know somebody has seen something that has helped them. So just knowing they're not alone has helped so many people, which we may never ever see them. So, and it's never been about that for us, but what it has done for us to realize, oh my goodness, look at all these clicks and likes or whatever. And it just means that somebody has said, man, you've helped me today.
Yeah.
That's the way it is in our world.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I mean, that's what you want, right? I mean, that interaction, Ted and I were talking about this right before you had got here about how just social media, and, I had sort of I had a positive relationship with it that eventually turned negative. So I got completely away from it for a couple of years. And when I came back to it, I kind of reframed it looked at it more like a phone. Or a radio. I was like, okay, I have a choice to use this in whatever capacity I want. It doesn't have to control me. Right. And so now, just like what you're saying, I mean, we can use social media in such a positive way and put good things out there.
And it's a perspective. It's funny you say that because I can honestly tell you I don't see anything negative on Facebook.
Yeah,
you know why? Because I've trained my mind.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I don't see it, and I see it for the good it can do.
Yeah.
So, everything in this life is a perspective. We've just got to keep it simple. Hear that KISS.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, sister. Keep it simple, stupid. Whatever you want to say. Keep it simple. And we do that very well.
I'm not on Facebook, but I see it as a tool. Just like a knife, I can cut a piece of fruit and feed myself, or I can stab somebody with it.
Yeah,
use it as a tool. So, use it for good.
Yeah, use it for good, man. That's exactly the mission of this show. It really is.
Well, and it's find the good news. I love it.
That's our mission. I mean, to use our signals that we're putting out there, let them be good ones.
Exactly. Yeah. And just as a reminder of, like we talked about before, just talk to people. Find out how their day's gone, be genuine about it, not just a cliche. But when you go to everybody's on their cell phones nowadays. When you go to look at your cell phone, you see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Look at that 1, 2, 3 at the top. That has been around an average of how many people take their life. And so let that remind you to call somebody or text somebody or visit somebody. Or the next person you're going to run into. Say something nice, go out of your way to do it. Yeah. So we don't have to add another number to that.
I love that. I mean, there's a lot of potholes out there, a lot of despair-filled potholes, and we can get caught in them, and our kids can get caught in them, and our families and people we know. And I worry about that because I've been a victim of despair,
right?
And felt like, what good is there? You get caught in that view, and it's so poisonous. I mean, it just starts to sort of seep into everything, and before long, it's like, this moldy thing has touched this moldy thing, and it's got that residue on it, and you're like, man, nothing looks good anymore. Now I gotta empty the whole fridge, so to speak. And I think it's to keep it clean, keep it good, and keep that stuff fresh. I mean, I have to do that. And it takes work too.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't always come natural for everybody.
And like I said, it's a perspective. You have to change your own thought process
and find positive people.
Yes.
Something that you're passionate about, whether it's a hobby or a sport or whatever it is, something you like to do. Find those people that you can, they can boost you up.
Yeah.
Have positive vibes, positive things.
Yeah, that's something that I've seen about despair in my own life and with other people is we don't realize it's happening when we get around a certain person, and before long, it's like, man, this is really getting into me. And if you don't have that awareness of your thoughts and emotions, which a lot of us don't, I mean, you look back and you're like, who am I anymore? Or especially if you're surrounded by a bunch of that.
Yeah.
That's really great, and y'all are that a positive influence, in my opinion. I mean, it's a great thing.
Well, we're trying, and like I said, we didn't sign up for this, but this is what we're doing with what was given us, and we want to continue to help those out there. So we do appreciate you having us on, and maybe something that was said maybe help somebody, or maybe put a spark in their mind or a thought and thought process what they can do in their own circle, even if it's not suicide. Maybe they're thinking about whatever their gig is in life, because everybody's got one, and thank God we all have something different in this life,
right?
Because we need everybody, because there's so many different things out there.
And it's finding your purpose, whether you are depressed or suicidal thoughts. It's like, find out what you're passionate about and pursue that. And when you've had somebody that you've lost to suicide, it is overwhelming. And you're disoriented for a while, and you're in this fog, and you're trying to get traction back. And like, I was a single parent. I had a daughter, only one child. For 25 years, she was 25. She had just turned 25 2 weeks prior to taking her life. So for 25 years, she was ingrained in my existence, and then I don't have her all of a sudden. So I have to find a purpose. So even after we lose somebody to suicide, to get back on the same track that you're productive and you have a meaning in your life, you have to find a purpose. And so part of my purpose is trying to give back and help these other people that are going through this. And that keeps me going.
I just want to share this with you. People who have listened to this show probably get sick of me talking about it, but one day I was at Stein Lumber getting a key made for a door at our house. And, it just hit me as I was watching the guy make the key. He pulls the blank key off the thing, and he takes it out, and then all of a sudden it's like the little, and the sparks, and he would pick the key up, and then he put another grind in it. And as I was watching him, I started kind of thinking about it. It's relative to what you were saying. I was like, right now, I bet you if he stopped grinding on that key, it would probably fit in some lock somewhere as it is. It just doesn't fit in my lock. But it made me think about how that's kind of what happens to us in life, our gifts and all that stuff. We kind of get a little grinding and a little angle here and there, and then one day that key slides into a door, and we go, oh, that's what that was all about. That's the door. That's what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, it was grinding, and it sparks, and it was
sometimes
very hard, and it's maybe painful, but now I've unlocked this door, and I can do something now. This is exactly what I'm here to do,
Wow.
And that's hard to find, and sometimes when we look for it, we don't see it, and it comes at us from a painful angle. But to know that you can help other people is just, to me, that's it's worth it.
And sometimes it doesn't happen in front of your eyes.
No.
Sometimes if you're kind and you approach people with love, you're planting a seed. You can have an exchange with them, or you try to, and then you walk away, and you're like, man, that didn't go like I thought it was going. And then that person, you don't know what happens with that person, with that what you just did, what you shared with them, that love you expressed to them. I think it goes that paying it forward kind of thing, that ripple effect that Jody was talking about, and it does. I think I do see that continue. Once in a while, it'll come back around to you. Hey, that person said this, or they post something on Facebook, or whatever it is, and you're like, man, I do have an effect on people. This can continue.
Yeah, I love that. Pass it on.
That's good.
And I'm happy. I know it.
This episode's Fishing for Goodies fishbowl sponsor is Brimstone Museum and Henning Cultural Center in Sulphur, Louisiana. I don't know what you look for when you travel, but one of the things I look for when I'm putting together my itinerary is a unique museum or gallery in the city I'm traveling to. I do this almost every time I go to a new city, but if I'm being honest, I'm guilty of not always doing that very thing right here at home in Sulphur, Louisiana. That's really a shame, because we have one of the most interesting, historically relevant, and culturally rich corners in any city in the country about 2 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. I'm talking about the Brimstone Museum and Henning Cultural Center. Have you ever really thought about why our city is named Sulphur? They've got a permanent exhibit on the history of the sulfur industry that answers that simple question and more. You really get a full scope of just how important the sulfur mining industry was to the development of Southwest Louisiana and the impact it had on the rest of the world. Yes, the rest of the world.
On the same property, right next door to the museum, is the Henning Cultural Center, presenting some of the most interesting, modern, and culturally relevant local art shows I've ever seen. My dear friend Tom Trahan and the Brimstone Historical Society have really worked hard to give us this treasure, and it's a multifaceted jewel that I plan to take advantage of more often. You don't have to wonder what their hours are or how to get there or what shows are coming up. Just go to brimstonemuseum.org like I did and subscribe to their mailing list right there on the homepage. That's brimstonemuseum.org. Tom will make sure you start getting the announcements for each and every new show at the gallery. But you don't have to wait for the mail to arrive to enjoy this historical local treasure. You don't have to be guilty, like me, of overlooking a local wonder that conveniently sits next to the Grove, one of the most beautiful walking parks in Southwest Louisiana. Drop in and say hi to Tom for me. Tour the museum and center, and make sure to tell Tom that you heard about Brimstone Museum on Find the Good News. Now, let's take that dive in the fishbowl. So this is, y'all, that's the first part of the show. There is another part to the show. It's a few more questions.
Okay.
That fishbowl that's right there that you sat down, if you don't mind grabbing that. This is called Fishing for Goodies.
Oh, well.
And so everybody who comes on this show, what we do is this is full of cards and slips of paper. Some of that's been put in there by people who have been on the show, but it's basically random questions. And so what we'll do is we draw 3 at this point. And so you can draw one, then you'll draw one, and then draw another, and then we'll just see what comes out, and y'all both can answer the questions.
Wow. Well, thank you, Ted. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. What's this say? Okay. Recent moments of happiness in your life. And I think I just talked about that. Was one of them was my dad, having that dream with my dad. And this morning, I got to be with my grandkids because it was Ma and Paul. That's what we're called. And they had a little thing they did at Ma and Paul's camp, so I got to go be with them. So that was some moments of happiness in my life.
That's great. What about you, Ted?
All right, let's see what I got.
What's your moments of happiness? You got to answer our questions, too.
Moments of happiness. I was blessed that my daughter had a daughter.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Some people have lost their only child, and their child had no kids. So I feel like it's an extension of her.
Sure.
And just anytime I can be around her, and just like I say, I soak up in the moment because I don't know what tomorrow brings. You know, one of us may not be here tomorrow, and so I just can't get enough of her.
I bet. God, man, I didn't know that. That has to be a blessing, honestly. Like you use that word.
It is. It really is.
Yeah,
and she's a little pistol. She's engaging.
How old is she?
She's 6.5 now.
Oh, wow.
And I'll tell you a little quick story. She had come over to the house, and I was wanting to show her something, and she was involved. I had given her this little castle that we had put together, whatever, and so she's arranging her characters and figures in there, whatever, and I'm trying to get her attention because I want to show her this thing. And so her name is Rosalind, and I call her Rosie. And so I said, Rosie, let me show you this. And she kind of put me off. And said, so Rosie, let me show you this. She goes, Papa, I'm trying to do this right now. Can you see about yourself? And so
it's funny when they get like that, and you're like, man, it's so grown up, matter of fact about things.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You just see about yourself. I'm busy.
I'm tied up. I like that. That's good.
That's awesome.
Now you drew another question already, huh?
I did.
You got the would you rather this time. Okay.
Oh man, would I rather? Okay, would I rather find true love or find $10 million?
Oh wow.
You know, that's a tough one.
It's gonna be it's gonna be. Look, I'm married. I know what I have to say. But you're not married. You can say which one.
I can spread a lot of love with $10 million. I might find a lot of true love with $10 million.
You know what? In this world, $10 million, you could do a lot of loving acts with $10 million.
Exactly.
I like that hesitation. I like that. Let me see.
Well, you know, true love. I don't know. I feel like I have love every day. And so if there's only one person out there, if that's what this is expressing, or the intent of it is, I meet a lot of loving people every day. So I think with $10 million, I can move a lot of people to where they feel loved.
Yeah.
So instead of just looking out for me, I'd rather make 10 million people feel loved than just worry about me.
Wow.
That's a good way to look at it.
I like that. Yeah.
Well, and I've been married over 33 years, so of course I'd have to pick the other. And but what's so cool with that statement, and as I think about it, because my husband Dwayne, he was when we first met and married, just the most passionate, and every girl's dream when she thinks about a man, romantic and all that. And 33 years later, we're at that place where we're doing what we said we were going to do, grow old together. We're both, he's a musician, I sing and all that, and on his cake it said we're going to spend a lifetime making beautiful music together.
Wow.
And we have done that, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
He's a great guitar player.
Love that.
He plays for Merle Haggard's son, Marty Haggard.
Really?
So we get to play Merle Haggard all the time.
Well, I tell you what, y'all really took a question that could have been so silly and turned it into some really beautiful answers. I got to tell you, that's a good. Sometimes those would you rather cards, when people draw them, I'm always like, what's on that card? Because I don't even know what they all say. They're sometimes a little cheeky, but that one really, y'all cut right in and got some good stuff out of that.
Deep. I guess because we've been deep here.
I've been accused of being too deep, but
okay. So
I'd rather be too deep than too shallow.
Yeah. Do I do one more time?
One more.
Okay, let's see. What's something about you that surprises people when they first hear it? Oh, Lord. That's a tough one for me, because I'm such an open book. I will laugh at myself. I will tell you the dumb things I do. I just don't care about that. So what something may not know about me, you know what it is? I'm going to tell you right now. I do a lot of things. And if anybody follows me on Facebook, it's so funny, because I'm like, where did they get that? But they see me. How do you do all this stuff? And I do everything so quick, but I'm going to tell you right now, I have been on KPLC today. I've been here. I've got other things I have to do, been at work, going back and forth, building a Facebook page for the fair and doing all this stuff. But when I get home, I'm going to walk through that door, literally put my purse down and sit down and do absolutely nothing.
Well, that might be a surprise. People might think, I bet she just goes and goes till she crashes out.
I think so too. So that would be a perfect one. Nope. I do everything real fast. I get it done. That's my high energy personality. I get it done, make my email, do my text to the other people, whatever, and then I'm done for the day, and tomorrow they'll answer or whatever. So
there you go.
That's for me.
That. What's your big secret?
Let's see. People don't know about you.
Man, that's a good one. I guess you don't know what you don't know. But what was the question exactly?
Yeah. Okay. What's something about you that surprises people when they first hear it? Do they know you're a drummer? Did that surprise anybody?
They may not.
He is a drummer and a songwriter.
Really?
That's true too.
So that can surprise you.
I'm surprised you didn't even mention that today. So
I try to be humble. You know.
Oh yeah.
It lowers the bar, so I can
so they can just be like, "What are you doing?" Yeah.
If you lower the bar with me, I'm more likely to impress you.
I like that. I say that too. Disappoint them.
And he's such a perfect gentleman. We had our 4th anniversary, and we all went out to eat. We're a family, and we're 3 women and Ted, and he got us girls a gift certificate to a spa.
Oh,
and
wow.
He's just such a sweet, sentimental guy. So I don't know if people would be surprised. I don't think they'd be surprised, but it's a wonderful quality about him.
Yeah, that's a wonderful quality. I would say so too. I think being sincere and sentimental and tenderhearted and all that is just kindness. I mean, hey, I'm guilty of not being kind, but man, when I see somebody being kind, especially in a rotten situation, I'm like, look at the strength, man. That's where. That just blows my mind.
Man, that's where you can shine, man. In the middle of especially in a supermarket, if somebody, is doing it, man, you can shine by just give it a little light on somebody.
Yes, boy, that's it. So that's what it is, huh? It's the drumming and the song, right?
Maybe so.
If that surprised you, that's a good one.
It does surprise me because it wasn't brought up. I mean, I didn't even know.
Yep.
Do you play in a band or anything?
I did for years, and I don't play the drums in band now, but I have an acoustic guitar at home, and I found I would write before my daughter passed, but since she's passed, I started writing songs, and that was a way to cope, and that was a way to get it out. And I've shared those songs with some people, and they've connected to it, and that's pretty cool because you're dealing with something difficult, and for someone, and you play that song for someone else, and for them to get it, like this is in your head, so you think, okay, this is for me, I understand it, but for someone else to relate to it, and for the essence and what it is, it's really amazing.
Okay, well, you know what? You just said it loud and proud in front of God and everyone. So guess what? We're going to have you do at one of our meetings. You better bring that guitar.
Yeah, I said I would, and then my shyness kind of overrides that. But I will.
No.
I wish you had it here. I mean, I've had people play songs in here before.
Yeah, I thought about it, but
I'll do what I do. And you ain't woman enough to take my man.
I've heard you sing.
I sing Loretta Lynn and that old country stuff.
And because y'all are doing for Calcam Fair.
Yes,
you're doing like
Calcam's got talent. So man, if anybody hear this, we would love for you to audition because that's how they're gonna do it. And it's so funny when I was on KPLC today, they were talking about it's the finale going on for America's Got Talent. So it's it kind of fell into the perfect timing, and so I kind of took all those things, and what I've done is I dive into what I do. The Isla Caprice having a karaoke contest going on from now until the Halloween is going to be the finals. So I said, I'm going to go do it. And,
wow.
So sure enough, I won because they picked the 3. And so I said, I just want to go on the other side, see how that feels, and just kind of to help those along the way. I think it's going to be so much fun.
It's going to be fun.
And I mean, I've got a 9-year-old little girl. Her mama called and said, look, she said she wants to do it. And I said, I'm encouraging her. Come on.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Come
have
sing.
fun. I think if you can get, there's going to be prizes, and there's going to be a 3rd, 2nd, all that stuff, but go have some fun.
Have fun.
Be engaged.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's funny you said that because I never did once think about the Isla Capri, Somebody was saying they got $10,000 worth of prizes they're going to give away.
What?
I'm like, I didn't even think about if I could win something, but I'm like, you know what? I am going to go for it.
What'd you win?
Why not?
Did you win? You said you won.
I won $100 at the Isla Capri stuff because it's just I get to be in the finale, which is October 31st.
Oh, okay.
So if anybody's listening, every Thursday night they have it, and they pick the top 3, and then they move on. So there'll be 24 by the time it's the end of it.
Nice.
But so it's just about being the fun and man, stepping out of your comfort zone. That's another thing too that will help people. I
always have to work on that. I have terrible social anxiety, and I have to fight it, because when it triggers and something just sets me off, I just want to get out of there. Just get out of there. And there's so many things that trigger it. And a lot of times they're fun things, but I just, I gotta go, I can't do that.
Man, it's fun when you face them, though, man.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, I used to not want to be on the elevators. I mean, so much. So that's another thing, fear. Fear is not of love at all.
No, right.
So do not fear. You think, well, what's the deal? And man, when you get free, and I'm free. I'm telling you, I am so free. I can't even tell you how free I am. I'm just, I'm a free believer. I like all that. I love that 70s groovy. I love you. See, you got a peace sign up here.
Yeah, that's what this show is supposed to be. I call it the kitchen drawer. You open it up and you go, hey, what's in here?
Gimmick of
and
everything.
You never know what's in there. Sometimes, I think there's even a skull in there because sometimes we're talking about death.
There you go.
Sometimes we're talking about love. Sometimes we're talking about peace. Sometimes we're talking about music.
I know, and it's funny.
Yeah,
it's funny what your eyes are drawn to, and that man above your head looks like you.
That's my dad.
It's got to be your dad.
That's my dad. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it looks like you.
That's right.
A lot of people said that?
The older I get, the more I tend to look like him. And I hear it. And, it's funny. I didn't hear that as much when he was living, but then it was like he passed away, and then people will go, oh, you look like your dad. You look like your dad. Never heard it before. Not like that to that level.
Isn't it a wonderful compliment?
Oh, yeah. And, I'll tell you, it's kind of crazy because when I was a kid, he and I didn't always have the best relationship when I was younger.
Oh, yeah.
And there was just a lot of pain there and some resentment and stuff. And so when people would say you look like your daddy, I would get angry. I didn't want to look like my dad. It had nothing to do with the way he looked. I took it as like, if I look like him, they think I'm like him. And then all this stuff would just sort of, it was a kaleidoscope, or not kaleidoscope, but like domino effect. It would just sort of tumble inside me. And then, now I take it and I go, hey, yeah, I'm my father's son. It's awesome. I get to have, pass on whatever was good passed on and pass it on to my kids, hopefully. And, the word that I use is sieve. Like, be a sieve. You know, there's some bad things that come sometimes too from our parents, and we don't have
what
to.
What is sieve?
Well, you know how you like
me.
sieve. You know, you're trying to sieve out like maybe.
Sift.
Yeah,
like
sift,
using a sifter. Yes,
that's right.
You know, I talk about that whenever I do funerals and things like that, or celebrations of life. We sift out all the bad.
Yeah,
just leave the good.
That's right. Exactly.
We need to do that here too.
We do. Definitely.
I know.
There's one tiny little thing left to do for you guys.
More.
This is something kind of new. I think y'all are like the 4th or the 5th, but this one isn't really a question.
Okay.
It's a random thing called Better You in a Box.
Okay.
And so just both of y'all draw a card and read it out loud. And what it is sort of just a positive encouragement for us, but also for people listening. And we don't know what it is. Just something maybe we've never done before.
It's a beautiful little box. It's brown. Looks like maybe a treasure chest of some sort.
A little hasp.
I just think that is awesome. I love what you're doing in this area. So God bless you and all your efforts.
Yes.
And let me tell you what, mine has a heart on it, because that's all I'm about is a heart. So I don't know if they all have them.
No, they're all different dimensions of life. Some of them are love, some of them are mind, some of them are...
Wow, well, this is me. Organize a pillow fight. I'm gonna do that with my husband
there you
tonight.
Go. Yeah, so all right, listeners, organize a pillow fight. Hey, I do that. I love having a good pillow fight with my little boy, man.
Our pillow fight is really organized. They're probably the most disorganized thing you could really.
Hey, you know what? You got to watch it these days with the pillow fight, because we have one of those dense like gel pillows, and boy, you whack somebody with that, it'll knock them down.
Exactly.
All right, let's see what I got here. Spend a weekend on a trip alone.
You do that. I think you do that sometime.
Do you?
Wow, you're a thinker. See, and know what's funny is on the back of his it looks like a thinker, and that is Ted. Mine's a heart. That was me. This is he's a thinker.
I like that.
He's a thinker.
I don't have a problem being in my own skin. I can go somewhere by myself. I can sit in a restaurant by myself and eat. I just go, and so I can't say that it's not something that's odd that I would have to make a special effort to do. I do this already. Yeah. So
you know, it's interesting that I do that as well. I go once a year. Well, once a year I go on this retreat that I've sort of made for myself alone, and I used to not talk about it, but now it's out and about. I talk about it, and I've had people go, "So you go by yourself?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "So tell me what you do." And I go and I sort of tell them, and they're like, "It's interesting. It's nothing extraordinary." I said, "No, but all the things that I do over these 20 years I've been going are designed by me for me, because who knows my own heart better than me? I know when I do these things that I'm going to get into some sad territory. I'm going to get into some glad territory. I'm going to get to go all through the spectrum that weekend. I'm by myself. And it's so good for me. I come out of that weekend all better. Even if it doesn't last, I just feel like all the pieces sort of get to land back in the right spots, and I can come back home and sort of, And
anybody can do that. Yeah. So you can do it right here. You don't have to go nowhere. Just, that's right. You can kind of do it on your own. That's awesome.
Some people have a kind of a fear to be by themselves. Like I know a friend of mine, like they won't go to a restaurant. They feel like so self-conscious. Like that. Like it's almost an embarrassment to be by yourself. Yeah. But if you do, and you just look at it, kind of like we were talking earlier, make yourself a little vulnerable, push yourself a little outside of your comfort zone, or allow somebody to push you a little bit outside your comfort zone, because you'll see a different perspective. Yeah. And so
I've met some of the best people that I'll probably never meet again by going places alone, because they see, especially if you go. Like when I go out of town to do this retreat and I'm by myself, a lot of times I'll be sitting drinking coffee and I will journal a little bit, and you'll see somebody who's going, that person's by themselves, and there's something, they just sense that you're not from around there, so then they strike up a conversation.
And you hit it right there. There is more good in this world than bad. By far.
Oh, yeah.
By far. There are
See, that's the trick of listening to too much bad news.
That's
right. It will you'll believe it, that the world's a rotten place.
No, and it's not. And it's not. Another thing is just, nothing's changed. I mean, we always talk about good old days or whatever. Everything's been the same. It's just we're growing up. Yeah. So I think we need to keep on moving on, keep on keeping on. Love, peace, and joy, and happiness, and all that good stuff.
Man, this has been a good show. I'm so glad y'all took the time to come.
Thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know it was a mystery as to what it was going to be, but I think this is great. I hope y'all feel like people will get a good good picture of what Halos is, and thank y'all for sharing y'all stories. Hopefully, somebody will hear this. Who needs it?
Yep. That's all.
And don't hesitate to contact us. Or do you have a way to put this information on your website?
I do, yeah. I put it with every episode. I put links to everything. I'll put it to your Facebook page and emails, whatever y'all want.
Okay.
Awesome. Because like you mentioned earlier, they are not alone. I don't care how you feel. When you lost someone to suicide, it's overwhelming. And we will help you go through your grief journey and find your next steps to get better.
Thank y'all so much.
Thanks.
I love you just as well.
Thanks for listening to my conversation with Ted and Jody of Halos. If you found value in this conversation, consider supporting Find the Good News at patreon.com/findthegoodnews. Share this episode on social media or leave an honest and kind review. That's how we take the signal back and make media positive again. I appreciate all of your support, but most of all, I thank you for pressing play.